baby. With me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the command post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your host and commander-in-chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So it is now officially April, and you're going to hear about these visits for all 32 teams. All right. Each team gets 30 visits. So you get to bring a prospect in, get to spend the day with them, talk ball, talk about how they would fit into whatever it is you're trying to do, kind of pick their brain, see, where they are football-wise, intellectually, kind of get a feel for their personality. Would they fit into your locker room? That sort of thing. And you're going to hear about all these different prospects that Washington is interested in. This is how we start to formulate mock drafts for the team, because you say, hey, Washington visited with this guy. This is a, fourth, fifth round type of selection. This is a guy they may be targeting in that round, in that range of the draft. Here's why I put this particular player, in my mock draft. Those sorts of things. But then there's also the first round guy, the second round guy that, their name is a lot more noticeable, and it stands out when these guys meet with the team. And in particular, Washington today will be meeting with Torrence, either today or tomorrow. I believe it's today. They met with Hendon already, the Tennessee quarterback, and I told you guys that he's a very interesting and intriguing prospect. I expect him to go in the first round. If Washington wants him, they'd have to pull the trigger on him, I think, at 16. And I wouldn't be shocked if he's not even there at 16. It's getting to that point with him. I still contend that if Tennessee doesn't take him, and I think the Titans currently sit at roughly 11 or 14, something to that effect. I think they're ahead of Washington. If he doesn't go there to the Titans, I then think that he's going to go to the Minnesota Vikings at 23, I believe it is. That's just my guess. I could be wrong, but I firmly believe Hendon Hooker has gained enough traction and steam, and I talked about this on my podcast on Friday, that he's going to be a first-round pick, and there will be 5 quarterbacks selected in the first round of the 2023 NFL Draft. That said, you see that Hendon Hooker met with Washington, and you start to scratch your head and say, hey, what is this about? Understand that teams meet with players, even sometimes knowing they have no chance of drafting them, or they shouldn't at least, but wanting to get to know the player, wanting to know in case this guy is someone that they have to play against, they'd like to really have some intel on these players. Generally speaking, you'd like to use your visits a little bit more wiser than that. You only get 30 of them. So you'd like to identify guys. And look, at the end of the day, you're only going to make 8 to 10 draft picks more likely than not. For some teams on the high end, 12. You're only going to make 8 to 12 selections. So you can waste 4 or 5 meetings to go, take a gander at a guy, talk to someone that you have no chance of taking, right? Now, with that said, I think what these 2 particular meetings should tell you: one, Washington is interested in quarterback, which they should be. I've talked about this. You've talked about this. We've talked about this. There should be a quarterback taken by Washington at some point in this draft, preferably day 3 for me, okay? Because if you believe in Sam Howell, and I believe they do believe in Sam Howell, then competition, and this is why I hate that they keep trying to push this competition narrative, because the one position you don't really truly want competition at is quarterback. You just don't. If you have a competition, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one. So you really don't want. You saw what competition did to Robert Griffin III, and it really wasn't even a competition. But because young quarterbacks see other young quarterbacks as a threat, it was competition to him. You do not want competition at your most important position. That needs to be identified very early on as this is the guy. And you need to be able to separate him and say, hey, there is no competition here. He's our guy. That said, Sam Howell hasn't proven himself in this league, as we know. And thus, you should be preparing yourself in case he's not able to get it done. You want to put yourself in a position where you've got a guy, right? However, My contention is that this meeting with Hendon Hooker is the same type of situation that reared its head last year. Remember, Washington was in a very similar spot. If I may remind you, Washington had went out and traded for Carson Wentz. Had they not done that, they would have taken Sam Howell in the second round. They've already said that this is the guy that they really honed in on as a second round pick. They had a second round grade on him, and they really liked him, and they would have taken him, but they had a guy. And again, I just said, you don't want competition at quarterback. You take Sam Howell in the second round, Carson Wentz is on notice. And the first chance that the fan base gets, they're going to get antsy. Hey, get Wentz out of there. Get the young fella in there. You spent the second round pick on him. Let's see what he can do. Well, if you want to take that pressure off of Wentz, you take a guy in the fifth round. No one's thinking about the fifth round guy. You didn't hear. Now, there may have been people clamoring for Sam Howell to get an opportunity. I didn't hear it during the regular season. It was Heineke that I kept hearing. Put Heineke in. Put Heineke in. Okay? Because the fifth rounder is out of sight, out of mind. Same thing applies here, right? They had no intentions of taking a quarterback early in the draft. And I would contend they had no intentions of taking a quarterback at all. The only reason they took Sam Howell is because they got to the fifth round and he was still sitting there and they couldn't believe it. They thought he would have been gone in the second or the third, no later than the third. And to continue to make selections and look up into the fifth round as you are making the first pick of the fifth round and he's still sitting there, a guy that you had a second round grade on and you would have taken had you not traded for Carson Wentz, your mind was totally blown. You said, we gotta take this guy. So I think they're doing the same thing with Hendon Hooker. Should Hendon Hooker fall in this draft, which he won't, but just doing their due diligence, should Hendon Hooker fall, they are doing their work early because they want to get to know the quarterback, that if he should somehow find himself sitting there in the third round, I think they would pull the trigger. Now, I still contend that the second round is too early. The second round is too, not for Hendon Hooker, but if you're Washington and you believe in Sam Howell, the second round is too early. To me, day two, the third round included, is too early, if you're being honest, because you should be looking for a backup, a developmental quarterback. You take a guy in day one or day two, that's not a developmental quarterback. Okay? Davis Mills wasn't a developmental quarterback. We needed to find, the Texans needed to find out if he was the guy. They found out already. He's not the guy. But they took him in the third round, so they needed to find out. Is he the guy? You take a quarterback in the second or third round, there's a chance. It's not a guarantee like a first round where he's going to get an opportunity. We've seen guys that got selected in the second round never get an opportunity in this league. Christian Hackenberg is a great example. Second round pick by the Jets. Never got an opportunity in this league to even start a game. So we've seen it happen, right? But it's rare. You take a guy in the second round, you take a guy in the third round, they're more likely than not, he's going to get an opportunity to see if he can play or not. I think Washington will take a quarterback in this year's draft. I think it's going to be day 3, however, which to me is the smart thing to do if you truly believe in Sam Howell. So I think Hendon Hooker and the meeting, all that says to them is, hey, we didn't think Sam Howell would be there last year. Look where he ended up. This is not last year's draft at quarterback. You know, Hendon Hooker's not going to get swept up with the rest of the guys in the draft and get pushed back. This is a top-tier NFL quarterback draft class where you're going to see 5 guys go in the first round, including Hendon Hooker, at the quarterback position. And so there's no chance of him slipping in this draft. If you're Washington and you really want Hendon Hooker, you're going to have to take him at 16, and they're not spending their first-round pick on a quarterback. They're not spending their second-round pick on a quarterback because this is – let me just give you some more context. For the first time, and we all knew this. I've been preaching this to you all offseason. Ron Rivera's no dummy. I keep telling you this. He's no dum-dum, okay? He's actually pretty damn smart, all right? There are a lot of things you can say about Ron, and there are deficiencies with Ron Rivera, but not up here, okay? Ron Rivera, for the first time this offseason, admitted to the Washington Times, and I quote, I could be out of here, next year. I could be gone next year. Closed quote. I could be gone next year. That's the first time that he's admitted that this is a make or break year. That he understands my seat is hot. With new ownership coming in, I've done this before. I've been on this rodeo. I know how this works. I didn't even make it out of my first full year with the new ownership in Carolina. So trust me, I know that this could be it for me. And a lot of people are freaking out because they're like, and you're hitching your wagon to Sam Howell? That's because they believe in him. And they don't see Sam Howell as a developmental quarterback. So, with that said, remember, Jay Gruden wanted no parts of Dwayne Haskins going into the 2019 season. Why? Because Jay Gruden knew that his seat was hot and that he needed players that could help him win, not a quarterback that was looking to develop that you couldn't play now that could help you win now. Which is why they had to double back and get Montez Sweat. Ron Rivera's in the same spot. He's not drafting a quarterback in the first round. He's drafting a player that can help him win right now. He's not drafting a quarterback in the second round. He's drafting a player that can help him win right now. I don't think he's even drafting a player in the a quarterback in the third round. I think the first time that they even should give thought to taking a quarterback is the fourth round. And even then, that may be too early. But we'll see. It just depends on who you really like in that, last sector of quarterbacks, that final group of quarterbacks that'll be lumped together. There'll probably be about 5 or 6 of them. And you'll have your pick of the litter from that group. And you take the guy that you feel really good about and you feel like it's good value at that particular spot. But I think they're going to take a quarterback. That meeting with Hendon Hooker, that's what that says to me. It also says that they're intrigued, as are many teams, with Hendon Hooker, and they would love to get their hands on a guy like that. Remember, Hendon Hooker is 25 years old. And while a lot of people are making a big deal out of that, I'm not, but it is a thing. Okay, he's 25 years old. Transferred from Virginia Tech. Now he's dealing with the torn ACL. So that's 2 red flags for NFL teams looking for a starting quarterback. Because when you look at the rest of the crop of quarterbacks, these guys are 21 years old. These guys are 21, 22 years old. He's 3-4 years older than guys that are going to go ahead of him in this draft. Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. These guys are 21 years old. He's 25. And he's probably not going to play this year. So when he finally does hit the field, he's 26 years old. These young boys out here are going to be 22 years old. And this isn't the NBA. It doesn't make that big of a difference. The only thing that it makes a difference in is as we get up there in age, and a decade from now, CJ Stroud's 31 years old, and Bryce Young's 31, and Hendon Hooker's 35. That's when we start having that conversation like, whoa, that happened pretty quick. That escalated pretty quickly, 5 years from now, when Bryce Young and CJ Stroud are 26, he'll be 30. That's when we'll start having those conversations. But again, if he's playing good ball, nobody will care at the end of the day. But that is something that people do talk about, his age. He is 25 years old. I don't think it's a big deal, but it could be a big deal for some teams. Again, this is not the NBA. That makes a difference in the NBA, if you ask me. It doesn't make a difference in the NFL, but just another part of the conversation. Osiris Torrence is a guy that they're going to meet with. And I've already broken him down. I did a short on him earlier in the process. I like him. I don't love him. And is he in play at 16? Sure. I wouldn't spend a first-round pick on him. Not at 16, at least. You told me back into the first round. I'd be open to that. 16 to me is too high for him because I don't think he's elite. I think he's really good. I think he's a starting offensive guard in this league. And he has a chance to be a Pro Bowler. But if I'm spending the 16th pick on you, you got to have a chance to be an all-pro. That's what I'm looking for at 16. Zach Martin, I think, was right around 16 for the Cowboys. He's a Hall of Fame player. That's what I'm looking for at 16. Not a guy that could potentially be a Pro Bowler. I don't see Osiris Torrence as Brandon Sheriff, even though Sheriff was top 5. I don't see him in that light. And to be honest with you, Sheriff was good. I don't know if Brandon Sheriff was I shouldn't say that. Sheriff was really good. He was elite. There were times where I would feel some type of way about Sheriff, but Sheriff was, when he was healthy, pretty damn good football player. At 16, I'm looking to swing for the fences on an offensive lineman, specifically an interior offensive lineman. Because in my mind, a lot of people disrespect the running back position. Oh, you can get a running back in any round. I don't need to take him in the first round. That's cool. Everybody's got their own philosophy. I feel the same way about offensive linemen. I'd rather take a running back in the first round than an offensive guard in the first round. Running backs are cheaper. You got a fifth-year option on them. If you don't believe in signing running backs to extensions, then you got a fifth-year option you can use on that running back. Use them up for 5 years and then discard it. Offensive linemen cost a lot more money than running backs do. That's just my personal opinion. That said, if you really, truly are looking to upgrade the offensive line, which I think Washington is, you gotta leave no stone unturned. Osiris Torrence is one of the better interior offensive linemen in this draft. For me, he's a second-round pick. And if I'm Washington, I'm not considering taking him at 16. Now, if there's a trade back opportunity in the first round and I end up at 25 or 23 or something like that, yes, be my guest. I'd love to take him at that point. Pick up some draft capital and then get, a guy that we feel like can shore up the interior of our offensive line. I'd be all for it. But, and remember, we're taking an offensive lineman or two in this draft. Remember what our GM, Mark Mayhew, said. Ron made it seem like, oh, we've done all this work and we're feeling really good about our offensive line. Mark Mayhew's like, we can field an offensive lineman of 5 guys. We have like 5 guys that we think can start. We don't have any depth, though. So they're going to go into this draft looking to beef up the offensive line, as they should. They should not be done. If you truly believe in Sam Howell, then you need to put 5 guys in front of him that can protect him, and you need to have another 2 or 3 that you are very confident in. If the 5 guys on the field aren't getting it done or are injured, that you have 3 or 4 more guys that you feel confident can step in, and there won't be this massive drop-off. That was the problem last year, was we didn't have 5 guys to begin with. As it turned out, we didn't have 5 guys to begin with because of the 2, old geezers you brought in from Carolina that couldn't really stand up to the rigors of the NFC East. We didn't have 5 guys that could get it done to begin with. Then you lose Chase Roulier, and the entire interior was compromised. At least he was holding it together. So when it's all said and done, they're going to take, what the meeting with Osiris Torrence says to me is, we're going to take an offensive lineman. It could be in the first round. It could be at 16. It could be in a trade back scenario, and they end up taking an offensive lineman. They're going to take an offensive lineman. I don't love Osiris Torrence in the first round. Not at 16. At least. You told me it was 22 and you got more draft picks in addition to that. Awesome. But at 16, I'm not going to be, raging like I did when we took Deron Payne at 13, back in 2018. That's not what I'm going to be doing. But I'm not going to be overly thrilled with Osiris Torrence because I saw him struggle with elite athletes. The solid guys, he'll do his job. But Jalen Carter caused all types of fits. And at 16, you need a guy that can kick anybody's ass. At any given rep, you can lose, but he was consistently getting... Jalen Carter was banged up and was only playing in obvious passing situations, and Osiris Torrence had nothing for him. Nothing for him. So, he's solid. I think he's got heavy feet. I would like to see them trade back if they're going to take him, if they're thinking about taking him in the first round, or hopefully he's there in the second round and you can make a move on him then. But there are going to be options in this draft on the interior of the offensive line. And so whether you pull the trigger on one in the first round or not, whether a guy's available or not, we'll see. But at the end of the day, Washington is going to take an offensive lineman at some point, and I think they're going to take a quarterback at some point. So I think that's what these visits say more so than anything else. You visit with guys all the time that you don't take. So don't read too much into this. But it does help when you're trying to formulate your mock draft. It does help when, hey, they met with this guy. That must mean they're interested. How many times have we done that? And the guys that they met with, they might have liked them, but a great example. was the Davis Price kid out of LSU, the running back. They really liked him, and they had plans on taking him. They liked him more than Brian Robinson, and they were going to take the Davis Price kid from LSU. And then the 49ers got their hands on him first, so they had to go to Plan B, which was Brian Robinson. So shit happens, right? That's the draft. That's why I said it's so hard to predict what a team's going to do, because you don't know what other teams are going to do. You like a guy, well, so does this team, and so does that team. Who gets to him first? Remember the year we liked Kerryon Johnson, and the Lions traded right up in front of us to take him? They did us a favor. Kerryon Johnson couldn't stay healthy his entire career, but they traded up right in front of us, so we traded back, and we ended up getting Darius Geis. Neither one of those guys worked out, so it didn't work out for anybody. But that's how the draft works. If someone gets an inkling that you like a player, which is why sometimes you got to bluff, you can't show your hands. You're interested in a guy, you don't meet with him, you don't show interest in him, don't even show up to his pro days sometimes. If you are sure about a guy, if you've got enough intel and you've watched enough film and you've talked to enough people, you don't even give off the scent that you're interested. Because if somebody else gets wind of it, that's how a team leaps in front of you to take a guy. If they don't know you like them, they don't know they need to get in front of you, you're fine. So, anyway, I said all of that to say this. They're going to take an offensive lineman, and it could be Osiris Torrence. I think they're meeting with Hendon Hooker. They know they're not going to get their hands on him unless they're thinking about taking him at 16, and I find that hard to believe. I just do. Not if they believe in Sam Howell. So, anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. We'll be live tomorrow night, and we'll have some things to discuss. It's getting real now. I'm starting to work on my Washington, 7-round mock draft. I'll have that for you guys here shortly. Working on my overall first-round mock draft for all 31 teams. Not everybody has a first-round pick, obviously, but there are only 31. Remember, there are only 31 picks in this year's first round. The Dolphins had to pay the price for the Tom Brady tampering, so they had their first-round pick snatched from them. So only 31 selections overall in this year's first round, not 32 like we normally get. So I think that means there's going to be one less selection in this year's draft. So instead of 252 picks, I think it's going to be 251, I think. We'll see. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the Command Post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys a little bit later on. I should be live later on today with a podcast episode, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But in any event, if not, you'll definitely see me tomorrow night for the Command Post Live. Until then, you guys take care. Have a good one.